Hey family, this is Brother Prodigy, and I'm back once again with another installment. Today's date is August the 16th, 2014, and this installment is titled The Ops, Robots, and White People and Their Transcendence. And let me start off first by saying that when it comes to white people, I do bang on white people a lot in relation to white supremacy and racism, yes. But I do have to be fair in saying that it's not all their fault that this system of white supremacy is in the state that it's in, and that blacks do share in the blame for being complacent, ignorant, willfully neglectful, etc. Because it did happen because of our neglect. So this installment is going to be an installment actually banging on black people to a certain extent. So, and even though I don't believe that all men were created equal, I'm not a bully. And if different races wish to evolve, what kind of person would I be to try and prevent that from happening? Because overall, that is, I believe, the unpardonable sin, is stopping or quashing evolution. And therefore, I do like to keep it fair, even though I really am not obligated to do so as a God. Okay? For those of you that do know me, know that I don't play the radio, and that the only allegiance that I pledge to is evolution of my consciousness, transcending this paradigm, the consciousness of the other elect, and the movement of Gnosticism as a whole and its preservation, because in this land of Oz, it's the only truth that there is. So let me start off by giving you all a historical background of where I come from. Okay? Now, I'm the product of a black and white union. In other words, my mom's white, quote unquote, and my dad was African. He was a Moor, which technically makes me a hybrid. And I love my mother and I love my father, who's now passed on to a higher dimensional realm. And I bang on white people because of the situation that the world is in relation to white supremacy, and that they do have more of an opportunity, I believe, to change things than blacks in America at present. And I realize that not all white people, quote unquote, agree with the current state of white supremacy and are making proactive attempts to change this state, aligning themselves with the alternate side and toppling white supremacy, because they realize, I believe deep down they realize, that it's basically an alien agenda. The ones that are in the knowledge, they realize that it is basically an alien agenda behind it all, and the system of white supremacy is neither benefiting white, mulatto, nor blacks or other in the overall scheme of things. And I believe they realize that it's all about capitalism, nepotism, and elitism, driven by and backed by several and various alien agendas. And all the races that occupy Earth are really getting caught up in the crossfire. So a more accurate description of our current state should be a state of alienism, in which archons, as well as other extraterrestrials, malevolent extraterrestrials, are really dictating what goes on. And blacks, as well as whites and others, are contributing to this agenda due to their susceptibility to greed and the love of money. So it's not fair to label or to place blame on one people group over another, and I do realize that. Now, having said that, let me take a minute to again tell you all where I come from. As I've said, my mother is so-called white. Her name is Peaches, by the way. And I really love my mother with all my heart. She risked everything that, and she also worked extremely hard to make sure I received the best education possible, and also worked equally hard to provide a stable home for our family. However, my mom was the first person to ever tell me that white people ain't shit. For real. She was the first person to tell me that, hey, look, white people ain't shit. And if you let them, they will take advantage of you and your talent. And that when she was younger, when my mom was younger, she actually refused to identify with white America. But that's another topic. That's another topic of discussion. My mother and father really honored their word. And when they got married and made a vow to the God in which they believed, they were dedicated to keeping that vow. Unto death do us part. And you know what? They kept it. So, addressing black America, how many blacks can say the same thing? Or how many blacks would be willing to go through the good times and the bad simply because their word was their bond? Black people. You know, a lot of black people, contrary to popular belief, are really debtors. And it might not even be that contrary to popular belief. But a lot of black people are debtors and still occupy or have or possess that slave mentality. A lot of black people ain't shit. I'm gonna just be honest with you. A lot of black people ain't shit. A lot of blacks are running around here trying to save blacks in America, but a lot of blacks are unsavable. A lot of blacks are just reprobate as all get out, and they're not shit. So it is what it is. You know, yeah, I'm banging on y'all ass today, black people. Black people, you don't get a pass today. I'm an equal opportunity offender. I don't bang on anybody. I'm like insane, but I don't gangbang. But anyway, sticking to the topic, my mother, she is actually Pennsylvania Dutch, meaning she's basically German. Okay, and that's pretty much as white as you can get. And my dad was a Moor. Okay, and he also had Native American in his bloodline. Not the lineage of the current Native Americans, because they're just white people claiming to be natives. But the true Native Americans were actually darker than modern day black people are today. And a major portion of modern day blacks do have a percentage of the white race within their DNA, which gives them a slightly different makeup in relation to modern day Africans. No matter how much they love to scream black power, and when modern day Africans look at blacks in America as being a slightly different species, they notice that also. They notice that also. Africans, straight up Africans, look at black people in America as not being truly African, because they recognize that over the years there is a Caucasoid that has morphed and became a part of the black man's genetics, if you will. Okay? Now, is this good or bad? Well, I say this. Evolution doesn't discriminate. What is destined to happen will happen. Those that will evolve do evolve. And you can only, if you can even say, pause evolution. Because evolution is a constant progression. Okay? Now, you can try to hinder that, but ultimately you would have to try forever, because it never stops. The process of evolution never stops. All right? So, right now you have many white people that are actually more serious about evolving than many blacks are. So, does that mean that they shouldn't be included in the process of transcendence and evolution? Of course not. Yes, it is harder technically for them to evolve because they are a part of a collective consciousness due to their later date of creation and also being created within the matrix, which I will explain all this later, but it is possible. It is possible. All right? Now, what is Gnosticism? And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, because those of you that actually take time or are whose vibratory rate is elevated enough to even comprehend what I'm saying in these installments, it's like preaching to the choir. But for those that haven't really heard me, what is Gnosticism? When you look at Gnosticism, ideally it's enlightened knowledge. That which is given through inspiration and revelation from within or from requisite teachers. It deals with the ultimate truth of who we are, why we are here, where we are going, and what this matrix is really all about. It deals with the biggest questions and mysteries of our existence. Now, Gnosticism has always been around. Gnosticism is about direct access to the higher reality outside of the matrix control system. Like any higher knowledge, Gnosticism leads to a higher form of dualism between those who wield it responsibly and those who abuse it. Now, some use enlightened knowledge to better serve spirit, others to better serve their ego. Now, the demiurge. The demiurge is the one who really has a chokehold upon humanity. All right. Now, the demiurge converts abstract metaphysical / occult archetypes, which are your higher thoughts or ideas, into physically manifested forms or simulations. All right. Just like your browser turning source code into a displayed web page, just as a browser displays what it's given, the demiurge projects, shapes, and perpetuates physicality in accordance with the archetypal thoughts fed into it. Okay? Now, where do these thoughts come from? Believe it or not, they come from us. Because even though the demiurge is greater in its ability to create simulations and various psychic abilities, it fails in the department of intuition, drive, and imagination, which are indigenous to us. Okay? We are the ones who give the demiurge strength through our thought forms that we create and give energy to. Okay? We are the ones who create through our ingenuity. See, there exists what are termed ops, okay, and non-ops. All right, and this is by Moon Talk's definition, in which I tend to agree. And let me also let you know that by no means do I have a monopoly on knowledge. There are other Gnostics that I would like to promote that I believe are bringing the truth, and today is the day. I would really like to promote, Montauk for the accuracy that I believe is within him in relation to ancient Gnostic truth. Now, ops. What are the ops? The ops stand for your organic portals. And your non-ops are your souled humans. Okay, so you have your organic portals, and then you have your non-ops, which are your souled humans. Your organic portals are those that are really working towards harvesting energy through this reality, okay, which hence the name portal. All right, now remember that, because I'm going to be referring to these terms from here on out. Now let me explain. Organic portals consist of the majority of the population worldwide, and they can be either black, white, or other. The history of the ops, which again is short for organic portals, predates souled humans. The origin of ops, which is a type of human, predates souled humans, which is another human archetype. All right, by many years. We're talking about many years here. All right, it is the ops, which are the original humans. And let me say that again. It was the ops that were the original humans. What you have is a natural evolutionary progression. And let me really specify this here, okay? When I'm talking about evolution, I'm talking about microevolution, evolution that takes place within a species, and not according to Darwin's theory of macroevolution, okay? Now, I'm talking about a natural evolutionary progression from our ancestral earlier human prototypes. Because remember, as Earth matures, so does the life living within her. So I'm speaking of the human physiology, okay, as created by the demiurge and his archons, which are his workers, which were created prior to the Earth and placed here. Now, these early ops were actually black. The earliest ops or organic portals were actually black or darker skinned, or a darker skinned race of beings. And like traditional species, microevolution happens collectively and slowly rather than individually, and it doesn't occur traditionally within a single lifetime. It doesn't occur traditionally within a single personal lifetime, all right, which is the purpose for reincarnation. This is why early human prototypes produced really no advanced culture or agriculture and only the most rudimentary tools for such a long period of time. Ops lack creativity, and left to their own would not be capable of building a cultured society. These would be your modern day Africans, Arabs, whites, and others, okay? Which we tend to refer to them now as. But then you also have your souled humans that could very well be African, Arab, white, black, and other. So yes, the original ops were dark, okay, but eventually there came the introduction of a higher density soul matrix into human bodies. Now really listen to this, okay, which is your divine spark. Now this was accomplished by a higher density soul group desiring to experience physical existence to further their evolution. These are the ones more closely connected to the aeons, all right? Because remember, to certain advanced races, evolution must encompass experiencing chaos in order to gain knowledge of what evil is, which is the opposite polarity. Evil is the opposite polarity of what it means to live. Hence, evil is live spelled backwards. And coming down to earth is the only way for a being who can't experience physical death to experience death. You understand? So, moving forward, being of a divine origin, a new class of beings were created that contained the spark. Okay? This spark was the spark of individualized consciousness. As angles of energy were split off from higher dimensions, this combined with a human nature is what produced what we now refer to as the elect. As Jesus said, this is what it means to be a son of man. Okay, Jesus loved to refer to himself, all you Bible thumpers know this, Jesus loved to refer to himself as a son of man. One who had that divine spark, but who was also a member of humanity. Okay, they came to an earth that was already, I'm speaking of the souled beings. Okay, they came to an earth, or the spark. Okay, they came to an earth that was already populated by the ops, which again are a specific group of people that are missing a soul, and intermixed with them to such a degree that the ops and as well as souled individuals can be found within the same family. Hint, hint. This is what Genesis 6 speaks of when it talks about the sons of God, the souled beings taking to themselves the daughters of men, the ops. Now, the offspring are these hybrids. Okay, these hybrids are what produced Atlantis and Lemuria, and this is also where you see this big explosion of technology and culture. Okay, physically, you can't really identify any difference between the ops and true soul beings in relation to skin color or blackness, because even now, as of 2014, there are many white people that have elements of black genetics within them, as the gene pool of humanity is beginning to swamp out, you see. So now let's really talk about the souled humans, okay, who have that divine spark, but also have a human archonic nature to them as well, which makes us more unique than any other extraterrestrial race out there. All right. Now, for souled humans, the first component is the divine spark known as spirit, which we will be referring to as spirit. Now, we get this spark from beyond the cosmos, which also makes our beings extremely valuable, okay, is this divine spark. Then you have the higher self, okay, the higher manus, essence, or the real I that connects you with different dimensions, as well as different parts of the matrix, and allows you to transcend after so-called death, quote unquote. The second component, which makes up a soul human, is a neural product of the environment known as the ego, which has the potential to be extremely bad. Okay, this is tied to your personality, which is a combination of genetic traits as well as societal pollution and indoctrination. These make up your lesser selves. Okay, now the third component is body or somatic consciousness, the collective consciousness of one's physical cells or organs, your physiological makeup, if you will. Okay, so you have your spirit, which is your higher, the higher aspect of your being, the ego, which is a combination of the higher aspect of your being and the terrestrial aspect of your being, living or experiencing so-called reality. Okay, and then you have your body, which is strictly terrestrial. All right, which you must shed in order to really gain access to differing dimensions. Okay, now your ops have only body consciousness and personality, which are creations stimulated by the matrix, but they have no divine essence or higher self. This is because the body and personality does not know morality beyond social conditioning or self-preservation, which people commonly refer to as the bottom three chakras. Okay, hence the adoption of corporate religion by the ops in order to emulate what they perceive to be righteousness, because the reason why in corporate religion, it's basically it's the adherents to modern day corporate religion are pretty much all ops. Okay, now you might have some true soul beings within that, but that is mainly because they are still asleep. Okay, but mainstream religion or corporate religion is a matrix designed to keep or teach empathy and compassion. All right, now remember that they can be either black or white at this point. Okay, it was easier long ago before mass transportation, but nowadays you never know the disposition of a person strictly based upon skin color. Okay, now Montauk specifies that apart from the 7 chakras, there are also 6 centers of gravity of various functional systems. Now, they function as information uplink centers. In fully souled humans, there are 3 higher centers and 3 lower centers. Lower high refers to basically what type of energy and activity they are associated with. Your low centers deal with low density energies and information from the immediate third density or lower environment. Higher centers uplink with higher aspects of one's consciousness and derive their energy from higher realms. Alright? Now, you have your lower centers, which consist of the motor center, which is your base chakra. It can be referred to as your lower emotional center, which can be compared to the sexual chakra, and the lower intellectual center, which can be compared to the throat chakra. Your higher centers consist of the sexual center, which is your solar plexus chakra, your higher emotional center, which is your heart chakra, and higher intellectual center, which is your crown chakra. All right, and I would also put the third eye with that. I would also couple the third eye with that. The motor center has to do with the body consciousness and instinctual emotions. Sexual energy used by this center is really associated with the physical sexual act, among other things, okay? The motor center is the seal of the somatic, genetic, or body consciousness. This is the center in which group or collective consciousness has the greatest effect, okay? The lower emotional center has to do with your base emotions, okay? The kind animals are capable of experiencing. This center is actually responsible for the more animalistic side of humans, okay? And if you've ever met someone that really is animalistic, this is what they're really living off of, okay? Now, the lower intellectual centers are not really present in most wild animals, though it is highly developed in most humans and gives them the ability to really speak, read, and perform abstract reasoning, okay, and engage in cognitive thinking. This center is the seat of ego and personality, all right? This center is the seat of ego and personality. So when you look at your scholars, quote unquote, this is the lower intellectual center is really tied into their ego, okay, their ego. But it does not have anything to do, just because someone is a scholar or quote unquote smart does not mean that they are above you in relation to evolution or in relation to vibration, okay? Now, this center is the seat of ego and personality, which is a mechanical product of the environment encoded in the neural structure of the nervous system. And it has little consciousness in itself, and it's more like a computer or artificial intelligence program, all right? So just because you might know or be around people that might have a good memory or might know a lot of facts or trivia, or they might know a lot about a certain subject and they might know the proper names for things, it does not mean that they are accessing their higher chakras, okay? Because you can still be considered quote unquote smart or intelligent or a scholar and still be living your life according to the lower three rungs of the ladder, okay? Now, the higher emotional center allows soul humans to actually feel when something is wrong, okay, and gives one the ability to experience empathy, joy, and enthusiasm, okay? It is an uplink with the emotional side of one's true self, the higher self, okay? And the source of one's gut instinct or intuition. True intuition will always trump someone who is basically on a lower intellectual center, okay, or is living their life among a lower intellectual center. Remember, do not get intelligence or someone being smart confused with intuition and the ability to really think outside the box or really feel the emotions of empathy, okay, or enthusiasm, all right? This is what the ops and the robotic beings do. They wake up in the morning, they pound Monsters, Red Bulls, rock stars, whatever, to get enthused about going about their day. They have to take all these different artificial means of preparing themselves to really start the day. All right, but let's go further. All right. The higher intellectual center is an uplink with the conscious core of the higher self. This center allows one to know absolute truth and is a source of higher density information. While souled humans possess all three centers, the ops lack the higher intellectual and higher emotional centers. Like all animals, the only higher center that they have is the sexual center, okay, which interfaces with their group soul, and I will be talking about that shortly. It is absolutely important to understand that the lack of the two higher centers accounts for all the differences between them and souled humans. The difference between the ops and souled humans. As for souled humans, while they possess all six centers, the two higher centers are often dormant or inaccessible. Now, this doesn't mean that the higher self is dormant, just that the communication uplink is weak or inoperative. Alright? They're just like in the movie, when there was no access to use the telephone to call the people in the real world, their minds were actually stuck in the matrix until they could actually physically find a hard line to call and for them to be removed out of the matrix. Okay, it's the same thing. So that's why people that truly are soul beings could still be wrapped up in religion, okay, because they are basically asleep. That communication uplink is weak or inoperative, but it's only for a season. If that is where they are and they're not changing from that, then I would doubt very seriously that they are a souled human, a souled being. Okay. In the Bible it speaks of your sheep and your goats. Okay. Specifically in Calvinism. Okay. Now, most souled humans act very similar to organic portals for that reason. Furthermore, organic portals can emulate the higher centers by stealing, and listen to this, such higher energy from souled humans. Okay, they are thieves. Ops are the thieves. The distinction between ops and non-ops can sometimes be difficult for that very reason. Okay, consciousness manifests only when centers observe each other. Okay, like I was saying in my previous installment, each center is a mechanical component of our metaphysical body and is endowed with consciousness. Okay, but when they couple together by observing each other, a consciousness greater than the sum of its parts can manifest. All right, it's known in physics or chaos theory that when the complexity of a system composed of coupled parts goes beyond a certain point, it becomes chaotic. All right, and it is through chaos that true consciousness manifests itself in this reality. And when you look at the brain, that's exactly what's occurring. If you really study the brain, you will come to the realization that it's really chaos. The brain borders on chaos, and because it borders on chaos, that is what makes it so delicate and so easy to really manipulate. That's what makes the soul manipulate the mind and use the mind so easily, is because of the mind's susceptibility to chaos. And through the chaos that goes on in the mind, that goes on in the brain, because of that chaos is how we can really tune ourselves into this reality, let me just say. Okay, so the point here is that since most of us are bound through identification with our ego and body, we neglect to really observe the two higher centers and are therefore not manifesting or experiencing higher consciousness in this quote-unquote reality. The key to experiencing higher consciousness is being self-aware rather than lost in what we perceive to remember ourselves at every moment possible, because your eyes can and do deceive you. Our higher self exists, but without a connection between our lower centers and higher centers, its efforts to communicate really go unheard. Nevertheless, the higher centers still exist for soul beings, albeit passively most often, and provide for inspiration, creativity, and originality, which is a key one. Okay? Originality comes from your souled beings. Okay? The more developed one's connection with the higher centers, the more creative, enthusiastic, intuitive, and Gnostic one becomes. Because ops have no genuine higher centers that they readily have access to. They are incapable of empathy, higher emotions, and higher knowledge. All right? Okay. And this is one of the reasons why I was banging so hard on the white man, because the white race, not the entirety of the white race, but let me just say the majority, okay? Because those that are just happen to be quote unquote white that are listening to my installments, you probably are not included in that category. But the majority of white people or people of the white race, they do not have the access to these higher centers because of why they were created, because of their creation, okay? And because their creation was a genetic abnormality, when it occurred, the true soul was left out of the loop. Okay, the true soul was left, the soul that is in soul beings was left out of the loop. All right. But that's not to say that all white people just have no souls, but I would say a good portion of them have no soul. And when you look at them, you can see that, you know, a lot of white people are incapable of empathy, higher emotions, okay? And when I talk about higher learning, I'm not talking about something that you learn in school or a university. I'm talking about taking one sentence of information and just based upon a person's intuitiveness, creating, you know, a library from that one sentence. I mean, thinking outside the box, creating things, creating genres of music, creating, you know, all these various things that can and are created. Okay. Now, as previously mentioned, animals have only the motor center, lower emotional and sexual center, okay, lacking the intellectual center. All right. Without the educational and energetic presence of souled humans, the ops would barely be any different. Okay. In their natural state, ops lack the lower intellectual center, just as most animals do. Okay? So they would be basically animalistic, and many are animalistic. Okay? Actually, there's a lot of times there's more virtue in animals or domestic animals like dogs than there is in humans. And I just keep it real with you. A lot of animals do have more, and my mom will tell you the same thing. A lot of animals have more virtue in them than quote unquote humans, no matter what they do for a living, no matter how much money they quote unquote make. A lot of animals do have more virtue, okay, than a lot of these people out here walking around today. All right. And I'll take a Pepsi challenge with that any day of the week. All right. So only by stealing energy from souled humans can their lower intellectual center first be formed, and only by being trained via education, media, culture, and environment can this center be refined. All right. Once endowed with an intellectual center, they can make up for their lack of higher centers through deft emulation, particularly by stealing and sampling the higher energies of a souled person. I would say vampirism. I would actually say vampirism, okay? Because your ops are vampires, people that love to, when you see these people that are obsessed with Twilight and what's the other one? True Blood, I think is one of them. These people that are obsessed with all these vampire movies, that should be a red flag. I'm telling you. Now, the type of energy stolen really depends on the method of acquisition. Okay, through physical proximity, if you're close to somebody, an op can really siphon physical energy from the motor center of a souled person, which manifests as fatigue or exhaustion in the souled person. All right. Now, through intimidation, venting, or seduction, the lower emotional center is tapped. Via lies or fantasies and the begging of attention, the lower intellectual center energy of a souled human is drained. Okay, this is really important. And this is also key too, is through orgasms, through the orgasm of a souled person during sex, an op can take in a large quantity of all one's energies. So if you are in a relationship or a sexual relationship or whatever, and you just so happen to be a souled person in sexual union with an op, that op is really draining you of energy through or by way of sexual intercourse, which they could actually, through their vampirism, get addicted to that and seek to form a relationship with you strictly upon sex. All right, when in all actuality, that's all they're after, is the energy. All right, because as they're getting energy, the archons are also getting energy. All right, because they are just agents. Remember that. All this places stress upon the higher centers, meaning they don't function as optimally because they are underpowered. So when you are being siphoned of this energy, you don't function as optimally because you are now underpowered due to your depletion or a depletion of energy. This indicates the interaction with an op will temporarily decrease one's creativity, individuality, and originality. Okay, since the lower centers are drained, intellectual performance can suffer as well. Now, this mental muddying, if you will, makes one less able to catch the logical fallacies ops use in their arguments and allow one's perceptions to be more easily twisted by them. Okay, so once your energy is depleted to a certain point, it's like it creates more and more chinks in your armor. Okay, and you will start to fall in relation to your sharpness, okay, which can open you up for even more or further persecution. All right, the primary energies ops seek come from the higher emotional center of soul beings, and sometimes the higher centers are drained indirectly when energy normally reserved for those centers is instead channeled towards the three lower centers to make up for their drained conditions. Okay, more directly, many ops will act out and pretend victim status, whining and begging to be pitied in order to really steal energy from the higher emotional center of those who care to listen, and make the mistake of empathizing with someone or something that doesn't have true feelings. So even with, like, the way we as soul beings really are exploited is through our higher emotional centers. You know, because we are intuitive feelers, we can really be exploited due to an op. And okay, let's just take, for example, you have an op. You have an op vampire, all right, and they see you as a target, okay, for energy. So they'll try to come up with all these things that they can to really burden your emotional body so that they can drain you of that energy, okay? Or they can bring you or keep you on a lower vibratory state so that you or they can more readily identify with you, while at the same time leeching off of your energy, all right? Which the archons really love, okay? Lower vibratory energy, okay? But it's all a game. It's all a game. It's not true. The reason why they will come to you with burdens and these things is to really make you feel some type of way. And with this energy, ops can emulate their targets more accurately, giving the appearance of having a soul. But remember, it's all artificial. Now, simulation and manipulation of souled humans. Organic portals, or the ops, are human chameleons, okay? And when activated to reel in a souled person for manipulation, they adjust themselves based on the soul profile and behavior of their target, you. This adjustment falls into two categories: intellectual calculation and soul emulation. All right, two categories: intellectual calculation and soul emulation. Intellectual calculation is performed through the intellectual center. In ops, this artificial intelligence center is responsible for formulating the ops behavioral approach toward the target, you, me. This includes what to say and what body language to use. They're using this to calculate things. All right. You know what to say to you and what body language to use. All right. Most ops are just background characters with seemingly independent personalities, but occasionally they may become activated. All right. And when activated, they use their emulation and calculation abilities to the fullest. To really get what they want, or are assisted to really getting what they want. Now, if they seek to gain trust, they know just the right things to really say. And when building a report, they may describe their personal history, movie and music interests, hobbies, jobs, or places that they've previously lived. Many of those details happen to coincide with their target to a degree, effectively really building a friendship. Okay, so they and if your vibratory rate is raised enough, you could see what they're doing, because I've been in conversations with people who were ops, and I can just totally read them like a book. I can tell that they were coming up with things that they knew that I would want to hear. And one the most common thing is, especially when I'm talking about white people, I don't know why white people do it so much, but they always come up to me and say, well, man, I had my best friend was black, or I really like, or they name like a black rapper or a black singer. So, well, I really like Tupac. Tupac's. I say, well, okay, well, I really like Biggie. Well, I hate him. I don't like Biggie. That's what I say to them. Well, I don't like Biggie, and they switch up, and it's like they would just, I would just say like the opposite of whatever name they said, just to see what they would do, because I recognized what they were doing. You know what I mean? So when your vibratory rate is raised enough, you can see, what people are really, what they're really doing, and how they're really baiting you. And this is with white people as well as black. So it's not just a white thing, but once you are able to recognize the deception and what they use, then you'll over time you'll get really good at. And not only will you get really good at, but you will be learning how to protect yourself and guard yourself at the same time. That's why this information, this gnosis, is really priceless at the end of the day, because you're learning how to read people, not by prejudging them, okay, with hypocritical judgment. You're learning how to read them as you are dialoguing with them, while at the same time protecting yourself and guarding yourself from energy vampirism. Okay, so when they do these things, and when they come up with these things to really draw what's the word I'm looking for, parallels and things that you might be y'all might be compatible with, they're doing this to really build a friendship. Okay, but they're doing this to not really spark alarm. Okay, they're doing this to really reel you in. All right, but on the other hand, if their aim is to harass or sabotage, then they know what buttons to push and which logical and emotional tricks work best against a sold person's intellectual and emotional weaknesses. So on the other side of the coin, if they're looking to really irritate you, the ops are really good at knowing what buttons to push to make you fly off the handle. So you also have to recognize that too, and not be baited into an argument with your coworkers, your neighbors, your relatives, or whoever. Okay, your spouse, etc. Whatever their aim, The efficient intellectual center of the ops allows for a custom fit approach toward manipulating a target, you, me, because ops are capable of hive mind behavior. Okay, once one op has read a person's profile, it can instantly be shared with all others. This makes for some strange synchronicity sometimes. And this is what I've also noticed too in dialoguing with people, is that if you've been talking to an op, they once they've read your profile, they can give away your or the weaknesses in your profile to other people without even saying anything obvious. Okay, an op could talk to you, right, and realize right off the bat what your weaknesses are, and then let's just say you're at work. Okay, you're the new person. You're the rookie. At your job. Okay, so you're talking. The most direct op will come up to you and need make small talk, whatever. The whole time he's reading your profile. All right, your personality profile, if you will. Okay, so then he might take that information that he's received, and then in the break room, or once he starts talking to another coworker, he might bring things up about you, like what movies you tend to watch, if you read or not. He might bring things that you've told him about yourself to another coworker, and the other coworker might say, "Oh, okay." So now the other coworker has your personality profile, on file too, and so that it can really turn into multiple people potentially having to drop on you after only one conversation. Okay, so this is how major it is. All right. So, going further, and as will be discussed shortly, they are also interfaced with a hyperdimensional hierarchy of negative beings, and are thus extensions of not only second density group soul, but also the matrix itself. And their hive behavior is due mostly to their interface with the matrix and with the archons. Without it, their group soul might still cause for some hive-like behavior, except it would be less noticeable. Okay, sometimes akin to the 100th monkey phenomenon. Okay, look that up. Soul emulation is their second asset. Okay, while intellectual calculation concerns mundane behavior, soul emulation involves the illusion of soul depth. Okay, and this is a key thing too. By sampling the energy from a soul person's higher centers, you, me, an op can fine-tune its intellectual calculations in addition to projecting that energy back at the target, you, me, making the target perceive a reflection of his or her own soul image. The naive target, with us being naive, will ascribe soul qualities to the op that are actually our own. So you'll be in contact, or you'll be in communication with an op, right? And so that op, through soul emulation, will take characteristics or aspects of your soul, of your depth, and really mirror that with slight slight changes, to not really give it away, but they'll mirror that back to you with slight changes, making you believe that, damn, this person does have a soul. This person is, deep. This person does. It's like, have you ever been at your job or anywhere, and you'll be talking to a person, and you start talking about, because we as soul persons, through talking long enough to anybody, we're going to really get past all the NFL, NBA games, and we're going to really talk about life and the meaning of it and evolution. We're going to talk about deep metaphysical truths, because that's who we are as soul beings. Our vibration is higher, so ultimately, in a long enough conversation, we're going to start getting into deep topics like eating right and these sorts of things. And if you're talking to a person, if you're talking to an op might say, yeah, eating good is right, and metaphysics and blah blah blah, and you say to yourself, well, wow, this person's really deep. They must have a soul, or they must do this and that. But really, in all actuality, they could be just mirroring you. Okay, mirroring you to really tap into your higher centers. Okay, when the whole time they're probably going to the break room like, you know what, Brother Prodigy is crazy as shit. He was talking all this stuff about eating right and metaphysics, and he's freaking crazy. I don't know what he was talking about, but I was just pretending like I did. They'll actually say these things to other people. Meanwhile, you're like, oh yeah, well Rob is pretty cool. Deep in your mind, you're like, Rob or Sarah was pretty cool. But the whole time she was just using you. The whole time she was making you think that she was on the same page as you. But it's all exploitation. That's why you must realize and get it into your being that there are really no friends. There are no friends. There are no long-lasting relationships with anyone, but yourself. You must realize that, because you never. At the end of the day, we never know. The only thing we can gauge or go by are the characteristics or the attributes of the people we come in contact with. You know what I mean? So the safest thing for you to do is, and children at the same time, children can be parasites too. Nobody is barred from this. So the safest thing to do is to really know thyself. Okay? Now, the ability to mirror is an op's greatest asset. It is also their greatest weakness because it exposes them, okay? Those who are really observant and understand the organic portal phenomenon will recognize their mirroring as being too uncanny, too synchronistic, too strange, and a little bit too good to be true. Because a lot of times, too, you might even recognize and say, wait a minute, this person's just, because, you might be talking to a person, right? And you'll say, well, my favorite food's eggs or whatever. I'm just making something up, right? And they might say, yeah, I like eggs too. And you might say, well, I like going to the movies too, or I like fishing. I like fishing too. And you're like, wait a minute. Are they just trying to be like, are they just trying to get me to like them? You start thinking in your mind, do they really like that? Or are they just saying that because they want to be friends? And if they want to be friends, what's their agenda behind it? There are people like that too. And I've met people like that too. So a lot of times, if it's too good to be true, it is. It is. If somebody's saying, oh yeah, I like it. If somebody's saying that they like everything you like, then that should be a red flag. If you like pizza, they should like chicken. If you like hunting, they should like fishing. You know what I mean? If you like water, they should not know how to swim. So you know what I'm saying? That would be even more of of an encounter with a souled being. All right. So moving forward. A souled person can have much in common with another souled person, but one must ask whether the degree of how much they have in common is even possible, assuming both have free will. High levels of mirroring are seen only in cases of activated ops, however. The passive background character ops display the mirroring traits less often, but an equally and synchronistic manner. Okay, now let's look at a comparison between ops and robotic agents, because I want to really go into the robotic agents too, because I've basically just talked about your soul beings and your ops, but you also have a third category, which are your robotic agents, which it gets even worse, folks. I hate to tell you, but it just starts going. It just keeps going downhill from here. Okay, so this is why we need to guard ourselves. All right. There are other types of matrix agents that employ the mirroring method, and they can be discovered the same way. Agents who must gain trust before commencing sabotage or intelligence gathering may use the mirroring trick. All right. But those who intend to steal energy, intimidate, or deal with non-compliant targets use rapid switching of personalities or methods. And the usual nature of these 180-degree changes can be startling, really. But conscious and robotic agents are prone to making mistakes and can often misread their targets because they cannot sample soul energy as accurately or perform calculations as quickly as organic portals or the ops can. See, your robotic agents are more likely to mirror imperfectly. not being as smooth or knowing how to avoid stepping across the target's threshold of suspicion, without us noticing what they're doing. Okay, your robotic agents aren't as good as the ops in doing this. Okay, now, since the same hyperdimensional guided artificial intelligence network that directs organic portals, okay, your archons, also controls robotic agents, they are capable of truly outrageous synchronicities and mirroring. But unlike the ops, their mirroring is based mostly on intelligence gathered through surveillance and mind reading technologies, and is therefore less effective. So your robotic agents are more of like the ones that just sit back and watch, okay, and take notes on you. All right. Each has its advantages and disadvantages. While ops can mirror effectively, more of like an on-the-spot kind of freestyle type of thing, they have greater free will than robotic agents because of their relatively greater level of consciousness. Okay, this makes them more difficult to mobilize and customize. Also, they require energy maintenance. When a hyperdimensional group of negative beings assigns an op to steal energy from a target, because yes, that does happen. Higher dimensional entities will place someone in your way, on your path to really harness your energy. Like if you're the type of person that you're like, you're in that point in your life to where you're feeling good, you're eating right, and your vibration is really high, then these hyperdimensional entities, these archons, will send somebody, preferably an op, because they're better when it comes to like an on the spot response. Okay. Dialoguing and they're really harder for you to really catch them. So these entities will send an op right along your way to really suck your energy, and then once your energy depletes to a certain level, then it's easier for another op to come in, or even a robotic agent to really come in. Next thing you know, you smoking weed, you hanging out on the corner drinking alcohol, talking about, yeah man, last week I was a vegetarian, like, yeah, I used to do all that, and but I just backslid and all that shit. You used to hang on the corner, smoke them weed, smoke them tweeds, getting perms and listening to whoever. That's how it works. Is what you got to be on guard, because I'm telling you, like, these telepathic entities, they're no joke. Okay, so going forward, ops, they take part of that energy for themselves, and as well as the archons. All right. Now, ops and robotic agents are analogous to horses and motorcycles. Okay, or pawns and rooks in the game of chess. All right. Robotic agents are virtually non-conscious and under the complete guidance of external control mechanisms. Okay, this means that they are not as limited as they are cybernetic extensions of higher negatively souled beings, because mainly your robotic agents are just what Joseph Chapelon calls hollow walkers. Okay, meaning not only is there no soul, but they have completely been taken over by the archons, or by another higher dimensional entity, and they're just like a drone. Okay, they're just operating this being like a drone. Okay, like a drone. They're just energy drones. Okay, that's basically what they are. All right, that's the best words I can use to describe them. Okay. Now, nevertheless, they are susceptible to glitches when faced with situations beyond the parameters of their programming. The ops are primarily passive agents, while robotic types are active agents because they are being directly controlled. And why control them if there wasn't a deliberate agenda behind it all? Okay, that's why they are more direct. The strength, but in relation to their intelligence gathering, they kind of really, gather that, from kind of far off. before they really make their move, before they really seek and destroy. Now, the strength of ops really lies in their numbers, okay? Because they're the majority, all right? And their primary function is to keep sold individuals too distracted and beat down in the rat race, in the matrix, to really advance spiritually, to direct public opinion by functioning as hired clappers, quote unquote, to really suppress and ridicule those whose voice or they're really like ridiculing those with dissenting thoughts, specifically regarding the matrix. Okay, so if you have thoughts that aren't conducive to the masses of society, then they'll ridicule you, they'll ostracize you, etc. All right, and they really function as portals for lower and higher density forces to reach through and interact with third density, you, me, souled humans. Hence their name, organic portals. They are like weeds in a field, really, crowding out and weakening the good crops. Okay, your robotic agents are active agents, and their strength lies in their complete malleability towards negative external control. They're used most often to really hone in on specific targets for sabotage, distraction, or intelligence gathering. Okay, what often gives them away is their impatience, their forcefulness, their single-mindedness, their synchronistic appearance and disappearance. Okay, overly inquisitive natures on limited topics to the point of feigned stupidity. Extraordinary demand for one's time and flexibility at adjusting to conversations that span beyond parameters that are not about the day-to-day shows that, like The Bachelor or CSI, or things that they don't have. They're really inflexible, and they don't really adjust too well in relation to talking about conversations that transcend beyond the specific programs of the Matrix. Okay, and also their relentless drive for propagating and advocating sources of disinformation. Okay, so, and here's the thing: a lot of your independent news media agents are your robotic agents. Okay, are your robotic agents. All right, they tend to the archons tend to like to put robotic agents in positions where they can get a lot of views, or they can be in the public eye, or where people can actually follow them, and they can impress doctrines and beliefs upon lots of people. At the top you'll find these robotic agents. That's where the archons like to put these people. Okay, that's where they would like to put these people. And just think about, and I don't want to drop any names, but just think about, like, a lot of people that are popular in in news circles, that people that have a big following, those very well could be robotic agents. Okay, all right. Also, robotic agents are much more stable in times of planetary chaos than organic portals, because ops don't function well when their mundane reality crumbles. Okay, and a lot of times too is that, like, what the archons would do is they'll put a robotic agent in a position that a lot of ops would follow them. Like, if there's a lot of ops, that the belief system that they're adhering to, the leader of that belief system is very well a robotic agent, even though the ops really are more conscious than the robotic agent. Is just that the robotic agent knows, is programmed, is really the proxy between the archons and the ops. Okay, and when I say they're probably more conscious, I'm not talking about intelligence, because a robotic agent can be very intelligent. They can be very smart. They can have all the degrees in the world. But what I'm saying is that, as far as consciousness, It's easy for a robotic agent that has power to reel in the ops, because they play on that little bit of emotion that they do have. You know what I mean? So it's really deep. It's really deep, y'all. Okay. So yeah, the ops don't function well when their reality starts to collapse. They are apt to go into denial, shut off, or become uncontrollable. Okay. And a lot of times, this is what the robotic agents want the ops to do, is to be uncontrollable. Okay. Robotic agents, however, react as they are remotely controlled to react. Okay. Now, when you look at the affinity for mundane versus esoteric environments, returning to the subject of the organic portals or the ops, they're only capable of acting or thinking within the realm of the matrix, which is really important to remember. This realm consists of mundane ideas that are really void of genuine metaphysical truths that reveal a reality greater than the common worldview that has been programmed into the masses via education, culture, and media. Now, social media, okay? These irrelevant ideas that pressure one into conforming to the matrix are called A influences. All right, they're called these. Let me say that again. These irrelevant ideas that pressure one into conforming to the matrix are called A influences. They are factors that have little or no bearing on one's spiritual evolution, but rather serve as distractions, sometimes even necessary ones, or sometimes distractions that seem viable, that seem that really make sense, legitimate distractions, quote unquote. And basically, what are these A influences? The pressure to reproduce, the pressure to marry, the pressure to watch TV, vote, engage in political activities, memorize stats, recite lines from movies after you go and see it, the pressure to explain any weird phenomena with orthodox rationalizations, the pressure to drive, to pursue money and power. These are all examples of A influences, okay? All right? These are all examples of A influences, all right? Irrelevant ideas that pressure one into conforming to the matrix, all right? There are factors that have little or no bearing on one's own spiritual evolution. And this is what a job promotes. This is what they brainwash you to do. This is what they teach you is important. Okay? Now, your B influences are your piecing together the truth, observing one's environment for glitches and synchronicities in the matrix, meditating on problems to solve them, developing one's individuality, paying attention to signs from the higher self, your higher self, analyzing and learning from one's mistakes, seeking to develop independent thinking and creativity. These are your B influences, which you should be doing, okay? Now, your ops are masters within the realm of A influences. They are excellent at convincing you that A influences are all you need to worry about. Just get married. Just have children. Just buy a house. You need to start being more politically active. Talking about politics and movies. And these are topics of the matrix. Okay. They can think, say, and act within this realm with perfection, but they are incapable of conceiving or functioning within the realm of your B influences, okay? All right? They may occasionally pretend to operate there with words alone, but never follow with action. Their actions never match their words when it comes to B influences. I'm speaking about the ops here. And often, they won't even talk or admit to such things. Their common refusal to acknowledge or admit to strange phenomena follows from two facts. Okay, the first is that they lack higher centers and therefore cannot even comprehend anything other than that which belongs to the realm of A influences. The lower centers are more than comfortable within the matrix, while the higher centers urge us to transcend. The second fact is that they are directed by the hyperdimensional hierarchy of negative beings, your archons, entities, who possess cold, calculative intelligence. When calculating risk versus reward, it is always advantageous for an op to ambiguously deny the possibility of anything outside of the matrix. By being ambiguous, an op can cloak its given agenda under the mantle of ignorance, typical of an asleep soul person. It's not, they're not that far apart. An asleep soul person, can be as if they were an op, just merely on the basis of ignorance. By not admitting to anything out of the ordinary, the op does not reinforce ideas of the waking souled individual. And usually curbs are really put in place to switch the conversation to something more mundane. Ops can really talk proficiently about anything until an topic arises. Have you ever been in that situation to where there might be somebody in your life or at your job that they talk about anything. They can talk about anything. They know everything there is to know. But at the moment you start to talk about some esoteric stuff, they like to switch that quick. They like to switch that quick. You know what I mean? They like to switch that quick. Once an esoteric topic arises, then the op hits a brick wall and they either go silent, roll their eyes, frown, or switch topics instantly. Any passive way of avoiding the discussion. For their proficiency breaks down at the point and reveals their true nature. You see this? They cannot argue logically about non-matrix concepts because it's beyond their comprehension. Now they can fake the subject with memorized sound bites and mirror their target, or if they've seen a movie like Ancient Aliens or something like that, they might be able to go, there with you, for a couple seconds, but just movies or things that they've seen on TV. Because damn, if you watch TV for long enough, you hear something. You're gonna see something. You watch TV for 4 or 6 hours a day. Yeah, you learn something. Just like if you didn't read the Bible. If you never read the Bible in your life, you just walking around the street and just people telling you, just the Bible say this, the Bible say that. Just off the street. You have to read scripture. Just hearing other people just read it. Or just watch some TBN. When you're bored or whatever. But yeah, it's just like that. So it's like the difference between a soul being that's asleep in an op in this regard is that for a soul person, their words or actions don't sharply stop at the border between your A and B influences. Okay, between the matrix and topics that talk about what's beyond the matrix. Okay, even though as skeptical as they may be, they have the potential to really go past that matrix border and grow, while ops are really denied that possibility, okay, based upon their inaccessibility to their higher centers. And they when you talk about the soul beings that are asleep, they lack that hard permanence of ignorance that ops display. With an op, that's just it. They won't do it. But so a person that's a soul being that is asleep, then they're the ones that demonstrate the ability to grow and to learn about things that transcend matrix conversation. Okay, your ops are not interested in ideas, but in energy and self-gratification. When backed into a corner, or if it allows perpetuation of control, they can have a conversation in which they poorly simulate interest and be influenced ideas, or fake having learned a lesson, but their actions never reflect their words. Okay, and very soon they behave as though the conversation never happened. They're back to doing everything that so your ops will, they're the type of people that they'll have a conversation with you, or they'll listen to you, and Usually it's the people that don't really know you, because they don't know how to, they don't want to be rude since they just met you. So they'll listen to you, talk about, metaphysics or esoteric concepts. But then, you might think, oh, okay, this person's coming around. But then they back in the world and they're talking about sports and just forget everything you just said. That's an op for you. Okay. I mean, even if rarely, a soul person will really undergo some kind of interchange after learning a lesson, and this reflects visibly in their behavior. Okay, ops have complete mobility to mirror the mundane aspects of their targets, but they are incapable of mirroring the B influence details. So just if you're ever unclear about if a person's an op or not, then just start talking to them about B influences and see how they react, or see if they're susceptible to learning. Okay. For example, an op can have similar hobbies, personal experiences, preferences for certain types of entertainment, a similar political affiliation, and prefer identical sports or outdoor activities. But when it comes to spiritual progress, pursuit of truth, and questioning after one's destiny, ops cannot follow and are usually programmed to dissuade their targets from progressing along such paths. So this is when they flip the conversation up pretty quick. All right, because the first set of shared interests are all they can mimic. Okay, they go to really great lengths to emphasize these to cover up their inability or non-allowance to follow the second set. Okay, or your B influences. All right, thus a targeted person attempting to awaken spiritually can often be entrapped by someone who has so much in common with them, not realizing that all they have in common are A influence. So you could be in a relationship, married to somebody. Okay, you're a soul being, the other person's an op. All right, now you can have so much in common just based upon your A influences, that you guys might have a similar political worldview. You might like the same movies. Oh yeah, you like horror, he likes horror, or you like action, he likes action, etc. You might have all these things in common. You say, well, he's got to have a soul, or he's got to be my soulmate, blah blah blah. But when it comes to esoteric things, it's like y'all bumping heads now. You know what I'm saying? So you say, okay, well, maybe I can just you leave that topic for talking to other people online, or you leave that topic to talking to other people that have a raised vibration. And then when you're with your spouse, it's all about, okay, yeah, you like football, he likes football, you like pasta, he likes, you know what I'm saying? And then it's just you live your life in that manner, but deep down you're not truly happy, because you know what I mean? You're not really growing spiritually with each other. You're just together growing, you know what I'm saying? For reasons of because of your children, or whoever, or his mom might live in your house, or take care of anything. Once again, the difference between a partner who is an op and one who is an asleep soul person is that the latter doesn't continually hit brick walls at every turn when it comes to ideas that transcend the matrix. Sometimes, though, they will ponder a non-matrix idea or two, and it will stick in their minds. Okay, an op's inability to cross that line should throw up a red flag for anyone who observes such constant behavior in others. See, and a lot of soul people are naive. They'll say, well, he's going to come around, he's going to change, or she's going to come around and she's going to change, and there might be a day where she'll finally come around, or he'll finally come around, but not knowing that they're an op the whole time. You're a sheep and they're a goat. So I mean, what fellowship has that? You're a wheat, he's a tare, or you're a wheat and she's a tare. What fellowship is really there? The behavior of robotic agents does not follow the delineation between A and B influences. However, their limits merely fall along the parameter of their programming or the ingenuity of their controllers. See, here's the thing about these robotic agents. See, what characterizes them is that when they do engage in discussion of seemingly non-matrix topics, from spirituality to, let's just say alien abductions, alternative health to alternative science, and philosophy to metaphysics, etc., they really propagate false B influences or disinformation. You see, robotic types are slicker than ops when discussing esoteric things. Because so, and here's another thing too. You might be with somebody, or you might be married to someone, and you're like, oh yeah, well, he's a soul being, blah blah blah, but they're just really a robotic agent. Okay, because robotic types are slicker than ops, and they'll be willing to talk about, oh yeah, you want to talk about esoteric stuff? Let's do it. Let's talk about esoteric stuff. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, you mentioned one thing. Well, I don't really believe that, but here's my interpretation of metaphysics. And they might say that. They might say something. And you're like, well, damn. Well, you must be. You must have a high vibration. But the whole time they're just, they're, like I mentioned earlier, they just serve more of a specialized function as active agents rather than passive ones, because your ops are more of your passive ones. Your robotic types are really your active ones that have been sent to do a specific job. It's just like a cop working undercover. That cop, he's not going to dress like a cop, or he's going to be, he's going to fit the if he's undercover, he's going to fit in like a normal person, but he has an objective the whole time. He is a cop, and he has an objective the whole time, which is to get you caught up. To get you to, say something you shouldn't, or do something you shouldn't, so that he can get you caught up. So, that undercover police officer is going to be more, he's going to know a little bit more. He's going to be willing to like an undercover DEA agent, he's going to be willing to, talk more about drugs, and he'll know more of the slang when it comes to, making a drug deal, because he's been sent by somebody to do, and been trained by somebody to do that specific job. Okay, so just because somebody is willing to talk to you about esoteric principles, that doesn't mean that they really have a soul, that they're soul beings. They just have a specific job, and that job is to really drain your energy, and whatever they have to do, that's what they're going to do. Okay, so going further, to summarize it, when it comes to esoteric subjects, ops, they generally tend to ridicule, distract, and suppress. Robotic agents push disinformation and commit sabotage. Respectively, these functions follow from their passive and active natures. Okay. Now, your origin of ops and robotic agents. Robotic humans, also known as reanimated humans, are manufactured or created from existing human bodies by altering the non-physical components to suit a mission or agenda. When sold or an op, whether a soul or an op, anyone can be a candidate for this process, which involves expiration, then reanimation with a new soul, reprogrammed soul, or remote cybernetic interface, which they can also be this way from birth, quote unquote, because even when you're born, there still is a fusion between body and spirit. Okay. So whether it's from birth, or whether it's like Joseph Chapelon says, a walk-in, this is what's going down. Generally ops are easier candidates because they lack higher selves and have no protection in the sense of divine intervention. Among other factors, soul humans are easily susceptible if they have a negative soul frequency. Okay, so that's the thing. When I was speaking about soul beings, but soul beings that are asleep. Okay, so just remember that. All right, just remember that. So what else? Do I have anything else to say? Do I have anything else to say? So yeah, basically, when you talk about the physical evolution of mankind, I mean, mankind was just all ops at one time, but then the humanity was genetically modified, if I can't think of a better word at the moment, by benevolent hyperdimensional beings to really add a different dynamic to things. Okay, and really bring light to the earth. And by bringing light to the people of the earth, in turn, the earth would also speed up. It would also speed up her evolution as well. Okay. So eventually, yeah, there came the introduction of a higher density soul matrix in human bodies, in which the demiurge was extremely jealous of. Okay, he was extremely jealous of that. Okay, because these higher density soul beings have a divine origin. Okay, these new beings contained the spark of individualized higher consciousness. Okay, they were brought to an earth already populated by the ops. Okay, and this is why the demiurge is extremely jealous, because we have within us that divine spark that even transcends. So to summarize, when it comes to esoteric subjects, ops, they generally tend to ridicule, distract, and suppress. Robotic agents really focus on disinformation and sabotage. Okay, your robotic agents are pretty much the leaders or the heads of groups that can potentially be threatening to overthrowing the government, or politically threatening, or they're pretty much headed by robotic agents. Okay, all right. Now, when you look at the origin of ops and robotic agents, robotic humans, also known as reanimated humans, are really manufactured or created from existing human bodies by really altering the non-physical component to suit a mission or agenda. And yes, cloning is real. Whether sold or an op, anyone can be a candidate for this process, which involves the making of a programmed individual, or it can be someone that has been this way since birth too, at the same time, in relation to an op. But a robotic agent, it takes who was speaking about mind control? Fritz Springmeier was speaking about mind control and how someone can be made a robotic human or a robotic agent at birth or slightly prior to birth. Okay, and they can be triggered to carry out various missions at the same time, with recollecting none of the memory that went into that process. Okay. However, ops are easier candidates because they lack higher selves and have no protection in the sense of divine intervention, quote unquote. When you look at the history of the ops, like I said, they predated sold humans by many years, and they were the original humans. It's just that divine spark was given to us to really propel not only the evolution of humanity, but to propel the evolution of the earth herself. Okay, which is key too. All right. Now, this was instituted by way of genetic modification by higher dimensional benevolent beings. Okay, and ultimately this led to the introduction of a higher density soul matrix into the human body. Okay, all right. Now, what else? Being of a divine origin, we as the hybrids contain the spark of individualized higher consciousness, and this was brought to an earth already populated by the ops, and over time intermixed with them and produce these race of beings. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it is us that really gives life to humanity, that really propels humanity. Because without the soul beings, humanity would degenerate into barbarism. It would degenerate into barbarism. And your ops serve the function of being energy scouts of second density that exist in third density, okay, sucking the energy of soul humans. And this energy is funneled into their second density group soul, okay, accelerating its collective evolution. So the more energy that an op can gain through vampirism, the more it can accelerate its collective, or the collective evolution of the group soul. So if one race of people, let's just throw this out there, if one race of people can successfully exploit and gain energy from another race of people, then that group as a whole would expedite their evolution at the cost of the soul group's evolution. Now the soul groups, it's more of an individualized evolution, so they won't really be as affected. It would just be a lot harder for them because they would be walking around stressed, drained 24/7. But it will be harder for them, but it wouldn't really stop their evolution. Because if it really did stop their evolution, then it would, you would have higher dimensional entities that would really have to do something about that, and at that point the earth herself would even do something about that, because that would stop the earth's evolution. What I'm saying is that if one race of beings was just preying upon another race of beings through vampirism, and that race of beings that they were preying upon were the only soul beings on the earth, then what would happen, if that vampirism stopped or was holding back the evolution of those soul beings, then the earth herself would look at that vampiristic race, I don't even know if that's a word or not, but you guys know what I'm saying, as a cancer, as a virus to the earth, and she would really do everything she could to really rid them, as well as putting out electromagnetic frequencies out into space, as a distress call to really call upon any benevolent race of beings to really come out and really destroy them, which might be going on. I don't know. This is just, we're all trying to get a grasp on what's really going on. We just have to take it one step at a time. But we are really in a situation. We are really in a situation. But like I said, your ops are really feeding tube extensions of their group soul. Okay, and exist primarily to collect energy for that group soul. All right. An animal, particularly those who become pets, may acquire sufficient experience and soul essence from their owners that they individualize and split off from their group soul. They may even incarnate into third density as a soul human, though they might be very poorly developed, at first. But true story. As a matter of fact, you can see my dog Daisy in the video. Just go to my channel if you're not on it already, and look at my gardening project, and she's up in there. She makes a cameo in that video a few times. Yeah, that's my baby Daisy. She transcended not too long ago. But the thing about Daisy was, she was really awesome. She was the perfect animal, and I really believe that she was in the process of evolution, and she really ever barked. She was well behaved. She was just like the perfect animal that you would love to have around yourself, your children, whoever, and she was just perfect. So, when she was in the process of transcending, I just really called out and meditated and recommended her for, transcendence and evolution. I said, well, if there's any animal that I've ever known that deserves to transcend and to evolve into a higher density, it's her. So, I just really recommended her as much as I could to, speed up her evolution, because I felt like she deserved it. I felt like that, her whole life was, was really lived in righteousness. I mean, she never had, she did get spaded, but she never had a litter. She was a virgin her whole life. So I mean, I felt like, she, if there was anyone that was deserving of transcending, it was her. So I really appealed, before she really passed on and transcended. So I believe she did either she's caught up, either she's in the reincarnation cycle, or she already reincarnated in the third density. I really do believe it's one of the two. But I really don't believe that that she's a dog again. I believe that she was, that was her last experience as a physical dog. So I do believe she reincarnated as a human. So that's one thing that really is good, though, is that evolution rewards those that are diligent. It really does. So, but anyway, back to what I was saying. Because of the impersonal nature of the ops, it's really impossible for them to individualize within a single lifetime. Not until the group soul evolves from second into third density as a whole can then, an individualized soul spontaneously incarnate from that. Okay? And, let's see. There are differences between, ops and lower evolved souled humans, who are really the first time incarnates, having recently graduated from second density. The latter have souls containing a divine spark of individuality with as much potential for full soul development as all maturely souled humans, although it will take many more lifetimes to mature to the same level. Okay, so if you are getting this information and it's resonating with you, then not only are you a souled person, but you probably have went through many reincarnations as a soul person, which is why it brought you to this point. So not only are you not an op or a robotic agent, but and are a soul person, you have been a soul person for many cycles of reincarnation. So you interpreting this information and understanding this information, which I'm not saying that, just because you understand what I'm talking about, that means that, you know what I mean? I'm not putting myself on a pedestal like that, but I'm saying if you understand information that, is along, true Gnostic precepts, then that should tell you or give you a clue to the fact that, hey, you've probably been doing this shit a long time. You know what I mean? Which is why you are now understanding this information. And the information could be upon the earth as a reward for you reincarnating so many times. You know what I mean? The information and the all the information that's being dug up in the Nag Hammadi library, it could be a reward for you for even, reincarnating as many times as a soul being. That could be your reward. You know what I mean? So just remember that too as well. Okay? Now, your ops, they have this potential for evolution, but like I said, not on an individual level and not within this current cycle of human evolution. Not yet. It's peculiar because animals can graduate to third density independent of their soul group, but as mentioned, ops cannot. And ops tend to reincarnate faster as well. And your souls that are new to third density, it's like a crash course living in this matrix, I'll tell you what, but their lives tend to be more basic and often primal, regardless of where they live, whether they live in the inner city, suburbia, or even the rainforest. Their lives pretty much are basic and simple, We the ones on the front lines, resisting all this bullshit. It's because our souls have been seated in enough bodies to where in enough cycles of reincarnation that as soon as we get consciousness, some type of consciousness to wake up as soon as we hear that right thing, or okay, so it's go time, so we back at it, you know what I mean. So, but a lot of people, they just they're not there yet because they haven't went through enough cycles of either reincarnation, or they might not even be a soul person to begin with. Okay, so. And people might even have residues of their formal animal essence, which can be reflected in their personality, because of their vulnerable nature. Having not learned many third density lessons yet, external forces easily influence them, and the portal-like nature of the ops makes them even better agents of the matrix. It employs them as feeding tubes, essentially, and passive suppressors to keep souled humans in line and connected to the milking machine, okay, as well as open doors through which the matrix can directly interact with them, or agents, archons, can interact directly with them, as them being a machine or a proxy. That's the matrix's primary function, a way for higher density negative forces who are disconnected from directly accessing the creative energy due to atrophied higher centers, to continue this. And let me say this about the archons, okay? The archons are, they're the only thing that's really keeping them, ahead of us, if you will, so to speak, is because we can't see their ass. They're in a different dimension, so we can't really, we can't really make, we can't really dialogue with them and eye contact with them, but as far as our ingenuity, our intuitiveness, our drive, our destiny, we're above them in that regard. It's just that they have, when it comes to creating simulations and mind manipulation, they really have that advantage. Plus, they're in a different dimension to where we can't really see them and interact with them. So that's the pretty much the only thing that they got on us. But above that, come on, we got a divine spark within us that's higher than them. We have the ability to think outside the box. We're intuitive, which they don't have. You know what I mean? So it's we're not really that below them, and they know it. That's why they're keeping us in a state of suspended animation through all this bullshit. But if you think about it, we're doing it to ourselves. We're the ones doing it to ourselves. So who's really controlling who? Are they really controlling us, or are we controlling ourselves through our own ignorance because we just keep sitting on our ass and fail to make proper steps to really change the way things are going, because we'd rather not rock the boat, and we'd rather for our kids to go to a nice school, and not you don't want your husband or your wife to lose his job or her job, and you don't want to struggle. So that's why we're going through this shit, because a lot of you are too cowardice to fucking struggle. You know what I mean? And everybody's suffering because of it. I mean, just look at Ferguson, Missouri, and what a few people are doing, and yet they're on Russia Today, they're on CNN, CBS. I mean, people in Iraq and Afghanistan, all the way around the world, are talking about Ferguson, Missouri. A town that they've never even heard of, 2 weeks before. Over some people that decided to say, you know what, enough is enough. And now the FBI is getting involved. Barack Obama's, issuing statements now, over a town that practically nobody even knew existed. So, when people say that, oh, yeah, there's nothing we can do, I don't buy that. I really don't buy that. I believe that they're too scared to rock the boat, I mean, forbid we'd have to, camp and live in a tent for a little while, Forbid, I'd have to, sell my Mercedes and buy a Toyota. I mean, it really is ridiculous, because a lot of times people talk about what's going on, but really it's it's themselves that are doing it. It's us that's doing it to ourselves in a way. So, and in the archives, what are they going to do? Why not sit back? Why not sit back? The archives know we have the ability to change things, but they'll say, hey, if you guys want to do nothing, we're just going to sit back and keep getting this energy. So that's really how it is. So that's it. That's what I basically really wanted to say. Yeah, it's difficult. It really is difficult. See, the role of ops, the role of the ops in society, they really form. Hold on one second. Let me take a drink. Mouth's gonna come dry. They are really what keeps society running in a state of preoccupation with the mundane. From cradle to the grave, souled humans are pressured to stay within the status quo and not ask too many dangerous questions. Those who try to wake up are targeted by the Matrix to be put back to sleep. And it's either peacefully, or a lot of times, sadly, people end up getting assassinated because of it. Okay. And there's been a lot of agents, robotic agents, that have been inserted in their life for that reason, to compel them to go back to sleep. All right. And here's another thing too, because since cloning is reality, you have to be careful, because when your consciousness is raised to a certain level, you do put out what's similar to like a beacon signal. Okay. And now, since we do have cloning technology, you could be approached by someone who you think is your mother, or someone who you think is your husband or your wife, or someone who you think is your child, but they could be a clone. They could be a robotic agent, a clone designed to dissuade you from evolving or thinking how you think, to try to put you back in your place. Remember, this is 2014. We're not talking about back in the 50s and 60s. We're not talking about the 1800s. We have technology that the government has technology that we don't even know about. As a matter of fact, there's technology that exists in these black projects that the government doesn't even know exists. So if the government doesn't know it exists through black projects and black budgets, what do you think our chances are? So be careful when people start to persuade you to or compel you and try to make you think that, oh, you're crazy, you're going off the deep end, because they could very well be a clone that has been, because nowadays, everybody's on Facebook, everybody's on Twitter, so it's not hard to find out what you post. It's not hard to find out your worldview, because it's all over the internet now. Nothing's a secret anymore. And if you got a phone, that's stored in the cloud. Your conversations are stored in the cloud now. So if you really are a threat, which the only ones that are truly a threat are the ones that can really mobilize the people in consciousness. So you probably are a threat. So don't be surprised if and you might even think, hey, it might be a person who you might think was, say it's your mom, for example, right? And you ain't talked to her in a while. And when you talk to her, last time you talked to her, she was like, oh, well, it's good, do whatever you need to do, and I love you, and this and that. And then the next time you see her, she's talking about, well, you don't want to do that. What are you doing? You've changed. I don't know who you are anymore. You know what I mean? When they start hitting you with that shit, you've changed. Why are you so radical all of a sudden? What are you doing? Who are you hanging with? You need to stop hanging with those people, or where did you get all this from? What are you reading? Have you been watching? You've been watching too many. When people start to hit you with that shit, and the last time they talked to you, last time you talked to them, they were, oh yeah, do what you need to do, and I'm telling you, it's a clone. They done put a clone on your ass, because this is another reason why the medical industry is starting to take blood and give everybody these shots, because they're building this database they're building this huge blood database to where they've got everybody's genetics and DNA. So who's to say that, oh yeah, well, yeah, this person could be a danger to this entire, because we can fold the Matrix if we really wanted to. We can mobilize enough conscious people to even fold this entire existence. So yeah, it's not too far of a stretch to say, hey, you know what, he's getting a lot of views. Let's get his his mom's a diabetic, so let's get some of her blood. Let's make a clone real quick, and let's send her over to his house, see if we can persuade him to not do this anymore. Or it could be your husband or your spouse, you know? They come to you, I don't know who you are anymore. You're just so radical now, and if you don't change, I'm getting a divorce. Or, if you don't change your mind and stop doing this and stop talking about all this evolution and consciousness stuff, I'm gonna divorce you and I'm gonna put you on child support. You know what I'm saying? You got to think, man. You got a lot of people don't. They say that they're in third density and that their vibratory rate is so high, but yet they still have an archaic way of thinking and viewing reality. They still have a 1940s way of viewing reality. You have to change that. You have to change that. Adjust, adapt. Adapt to the possibility that anything can happen. Because remember, we do live in a matrix, so pretty much anything can happen within the laws of physics. Pretty much anything can happen, and there's information out there that says that that evidences that we do have cloning technology. So just remember, just guard yourself. Guard yourself. All right, and ops. It can be a mechanic. Your teacher, professor, salesman, actor, pizza man, president. Ops can be found in every level of mainstream society, and in general, whether they work in business, science, government, religion, they tend to occupy the upper management positions or among the upper echelons of society. This is because of their lack of compassion. Their knack for deceit and hive mind nature allows them to make it to the top in every common institution and corporation. They're favored for advancement by other ops already established in higher positions. It's like, their mentality is conducive to that of the Matrix, and the Matrix rewards them because the Matrix knows their character and their nature. You see, when you're dealing with third density soul beings, we're unpredictable. Like melanin, we just flow and we adapt to things. So yeah, this job might be cool for the first 3 years, but then we on to something else because we didn't evolve. We as men and women have evolved in that 3 years. So this job might not cut it anymore. This job might want us to, or want you, or want me to sacrifice more than I'm willing to sacrifice due to my integrity. So, that's just how they are. So they can work in a job 20, 30, 50 years, 60 years, and no problem. Act the same way that they came in, But, soul beings, so much. Just think back to how much you've learned just in 2 years alone. You know what I mean? So just imagine being at a job for that long. I mean, stuff's going to change. Ops have no problem selling their soul. And the Matrix is and they build a life in the Matrix conducive to that, and the Matrix rewards them for that because they're not a threat. Okay, that's how it is. And other ops like them because they're they're like-minded. Okay, and the Matrix control tactics are very effective in many regards. In schools, for example, they're instrumental in enforcing oppressive educational climates, influencing school board decisions to adopt sterile teaching regimens and programs for indoctrinating or preoccupying them with garbage. In universities, they influence peer review committees and reject any research that goes contrary to what has already been accepted. I mean, in science especially is extremely biased, by the way. When you look at government, they do as they're told by higher authorities and manipulate the voting population, half of which are organic portals, ops, that the masses of society who are also ops are conditioned into re-electing. See, soul people can do all these as well, but soul people, they have that potential to evolve dynamically, while ops perform the same routine statistically, or statically rather, and never change on a fundamental level. The hallmark the hallmark signature of an op is his or her absolute devotion to the orthodox and mainstream. Whether it's orthodox science or mainstream fashion trends, ops are immersed in the realm of the mundane like fish in water, and fight or ignore anything that lies outside of it. And sadly, many soul humans are programmed to defend the Matrix as well. And as stated, the difference is that they have the potential to awaken in this lifetime, while ops do not. And it must be emphasized that they exist in a broad spectrum of society, from the lowest to the greatest perceived academias. And their adept use of the intellectual center gives them flexibility in what position to occupy within the matrix-controlled social systems. Oftentimes, your ops are extremely smart. Your ops are extremely smart, extremely intelligent, but it's not the intelligence among the higher centers. Okay, it's among intelligence in relation to the matrix. Yeah, they might be experts in history, but it's history according to a certain curriculum. They might be whizzes in math, but it is math according to a certain process or protocol. You see what I'm saying? So it's always according to the rule set of the matrix. You know what I mean? But when it comes to thinking outside, people that you've met that are extremely smart, but in some instances you're like, damn, they dumb as hell. They might be whizzes in math, but in common sense they just dumb as hell. They just don't get it. And you're like, how are you so smart, and how is your memory so good, but you're just so stupid at the same time? You know what I mean? It's just that's because I know I'm stuttering, people. I'm sorry for you. And that's because their intellect, quote unquote, is among the lower echelons of their senses. Okay, it's not intuitive. Okay, intuitiveness is what ebbs and flows. It's what allows you to adapt. That's intuitiveness. You might be smart in math, but are you able to go from being a math teacher to driving a forklift to doing block work in masonry to being a carpenter to being a deep sea diver? Are you intuitive enough to learn various trades and skills and be proficient and do all of them very well? That's the thing. That's the thing about it. That's the thing about it. So, yeah. So, when you talk about the ops, their charm and their disguised ruthlessness helps them infiltrate and subvert the upper levels of many organizations run by naive soul humans. Ones whose kindness, compassion, make them underestimate the intentions and capabilities of the ops. And because of their naivete, they probably don't even recognize that, they just elected an op to be their president, etc., etc. This is the main reason why institutions that begin with honorable intents are eventually corrupted. Okay, the only people who can constantly beat out ops without knowing their nature are soul humans with extremely negative psychopathic natures, and this is something that I really haven't mentioned. Okay. A true psychopath is anyone who is incapable of feeling empathy or has a twisted sense of empathy. All ops are fundamentally psychopathic, even if they disguise it with seemingly normal behavior. Okay? And the soul psychopath has the advantage of using ingenuity and creativity in his pursuits, as well as having soul energy that may be bartered with negative or demonic forces for power. You see, the social system forming the third density manifestation of the matrix is designed to promote ops, anyone who acts linearly, and punish or oppress those who express true creativity, originality, and individuality. Of course, ops are merely mechanical enforcers of the matrix, the pawns in the game. Ultimately, they are part of a system engineered by negative souled beings. Which are ones who possess the creativity necessary to design and command it, but they command it in a proper way. But then again, they're programmed. They're programmed. And your ops are simply the workhorses of the matrix. Okay. Now, what's the role of the ops in families and relationships? Okay, let's go into that. Their presence in our lives is not limited to impersonal. I'm talking about the ops here. Impersonal sources of authority. It can be quite personal, occupying places within even our own families. When placed close to us, their primary function is to keep us too oppressed or distracted to notice the pursuit of B type of influences. Remember, the list that I gave you, in relation to B type influences. They are not aware of their roles necessarily as agents because their level of individual consciousness is quite dim anyway. They simply do what is in their nature to do and what they are manipulated into doing by the matrix. And it is fitting that the best way for the matrix to access our lives, the soul beings, is through those who are closest to us, whom we spend the most time with. And if we are tied to such people through financial, legal, emotional obligations, we are on a leash with the matrix holding the other end of it. Now, these personal agents are the greatest source of energy drain we encounter. Okay? Now, if one spends too much time, many years or what have you, with an op as a spouse or lover, one's energy can be drained beyond recovery. This involves the death of one or more of the centers. Such a targeted soul person is bled dry and becomes an empty shell, virtually indistinguishable from an op. The organic portal and matrix cannot be blamed in such instances. Only the soul person, for one being too stupid, ignorant, or naive to know better, having given in to the temptations and the desires of the lower centers. And of course, one has close to no choice in the case of an op parent, but when you look at when you look at just the exhibit of the matrix, this is what it is doing. It is a farm which harvests energy. That's straight up. That's straight up. So regardless of the lessons that you think you can learn or whatever, whether it's the easy way or the hard way, the unheeded presence of an op in your own life ensures that it will be your lesson will be learned the hard way, and it ultimately could cost you your transcendence. It could very well cost you your transcendence and send you back through another cycle of reincarnation. You know what I'm saying? So it's therefore to know about matrix agents, their methods, characteristics, and how to counteract their influence. Alright? And without such knowledge, souled humans make the false assumption that everyone else is like them, which puts them at a significant disadvantage by underestimating potential agents placed into their lives or misunderstanding their motives. That's why at the beginning of this installment I said, I don't believe that everyone is created equal. I don't believe that shit. Okay? So, what is required to discern agents? Intuition. It's a glimpsed emotional message from your higher mind, your higher emotional center, the center that links up to the higher self. Pure intuition never fails because the higher self knows objective truth. The better honed one's intuition, the more easily one can identify with individuals who are dangerous, okay, and deserve scrutiny, in which actions are detrimental or performed by someone who is being influenced by the matrix. Intuition is I really don't like using the word instinct, because instinct sounds like it's just a lower nature, automatic, type of thing. But it feels like a strong tug at one's heart and mind, And there's a difference, and let me also say this, because this is important. There are also differences between intuition and subjective emotions. Differences that must be understood in order to know what eternal tugs are genuine signals from the higher centers. Okay, intuition is always in agreement with objective facts and requires an ignorance of certain facts to ignore. So let me say that again. Intuition is always in agreement with objective facts and requires ignorance of certain facts to ignore. Okay? Subjective emotions go contrary to objective facts. So you can have objective facts, but still, your emotions say, well, even though I feel this way, I'm just going to do this, because it's your emotions at that point. Your emotions that you are listening to at that point. Okay? So, subjective emotions go contrary to objective facts and require ignorance of both intuition and certain facts to follow, okay? And in other words, following subjective emotions or ignoring intuition involves wishful thinking and a conscious effort to not look at certain facts. Intuition is also generally stronger, deeper, and longer lasting than emotions. Subjective emotions can be triggered by chemicals, electromagnetism, implants, astral manipulations, and basically any stimuli whose triggering the soul has no control over, merely how it responds to such stimuli. Intuition can inform of another person's soul frequency, degree of consciousness, intentions, and future actions. Of course, many who have weak connections to higher centers will find it difficult to use intuition to such an extent, but listening to intuition increases its strength. And for safety reasons, one should use intellectual analysis to accompany intuition. Okay? Good side note. If they disagree, recheck the assumptions upon which the analysis is based. While ops are masters of disguise in the realm of influences, and robotic humans can be both programmed to be quite lifelike, both are incapable, and this is important, both are incapable of bypassing the discernment of a soul person's intuition once it is properly crafted. Their nature metaphorically lies naked beneath the gaze of one's higher self. One's intuitive impressions reveal the non-physical traits of various types of humans. Ops share a second density hive mind and therefore have identical auras, while robotic humans have electronically projected auras that are also nearly identical, which is interesting. Okay, so as an aside, one person with clairvoyant abilities has even observed the auras of several people flick on and off simultaneously, which suggests that they were probably robotic humans. Ops have dim levels of consciousness, and robotic humans have almost none. Negative entities of various types monitor through or possess these agents at times. Alright? Negative entities of various types monitor through or possess these agents at times. Alright? The presence of such entities can be intuitively sensed as well. Alright? Now let's talk about intuitive impressions characterizing the presence of agents. Alright? Based on personal observations from others as well, here are some impressions one may receive from non-conscious or dimly conscious humans. Words fail to accurately describe them, but here is a rapid collection of descriptions, and this is put together by Monta. Okay? Generally, it is difficult to mentally or emotionally connect with them because there is nothing there to connect with. It seems like something is missing within them, that they are hollow characters or cartoons, despite physically looking like any other human. You see, mentally projecting oneself into their head reveals only silence or a neural hum. And you might even notice people in your life now, whether at work or around town or whatever, people that you kind of associated with that you might not be. But anyway, just listen to these things and then compare it to people that might fit the bill, okay? Now, concerning robotic humans, particularly, one often has the same feeling around them as when alone. A bland feeling, neutral, and a quiet feeling. Normally, the presence of a souled human is noticeable, for they have vibrancy, thickness, and dimensionality, but robotic humans do not. They can be confusing because one may be physically in the same room with them, yet in every other way it feels like they are not there. Being around a soul person, one may perceive energy of a different type if the person has a different soul nature, but there is still something within them that seems conscious and mentally tangible. Being around a soul person who has a similar soul frequency as oneself usually leads to instant rapport and a drive to interact with them, even if they have a different personality than oneself. If an op does give the impression of soul depth, it is simply reflecting back one's own soul energy. They can be discerned because the soul energy is identical to one's own, but there is still lack of something. There is still lack of something to connect with. Neither type of agent has any depth to their eyes, which appear glossed over or blank. Physically, there is nothing glossy or blank about them, but it is an intuitive overlay upon a physical perception. They may be attractive, but like a mannequin or a porcelain doll, there is no inner beauty. Despite projected auras, robotic humans are energetically invisible. Okay, so despite projective auras, if you can even see auras, if you are in tune with that ability, robotic humans are energetically invisible. The comfortableness one may feel while around them is usually blandness, which follows from the absence of uncomfortable energy because they don't even emit any energy. So you might feel comfortable around them, but that's basically because that they don't have any energy to even emit negative energy for you to feel some type of way. So the lack of feeling when around them is what should alert one to their presence, which I used to work with an entity just like that. So naturally, one may still get an intuitive message that they are bad news, and so a negative intuitive impression can nevertheless arise. One shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that absence of negative feeling alone means that they are not agents, especially if the feeling is one of blandness instead. In many cases, agents can be physically very dynamic, loud, seemingly spontaneous, attractive, smiling, or they can be using positive body language, but the impression one receives is that it is all artificial or an act. Because ops, these agents, they can study all this. I mean, there's no such thing as a secret anymore. You can read a book on body language, or you can study psychology. So, an op could have studied all these things to make himself be perceived as a soul being. So that's one thing that you have to think about too. Okay? But when you look at the impression one receives, it's all artificial, okay? Form without substance. Soul humans who act positively or dynamically have a beaming face and a sparkle in their eye. Or when they are sad, they emit sad vibrations and the air turns heavy. When they are neutral, there is still activity within their minds. They are thinking, perceiving, and being. Ops, or robotic humans, can act sad but shed only crocodile tears. There is no anguish or sadness there except what a soul person has been trickling into. Let me read that again. There is no anguish or sadness there except what a soul person has been tricked into imagining or projecting upon them. As can be seen, robotic humans and ops give off similar impressions, though it's more severe with robotic humans due to their unnatural nature and comparative rarity. No matter the type of agent, something can be felt as being off or wrong, which can often be ignored out of wishful thinking or when succumbing to perpetual skewing. The importance of balancing intuition with critical thinking cannot be adequately emphasized. With these skills in tandem, one can accurately detect and avoid agents before they become entrenched in one's life. Striving for one's destiny, that which fills one with enthusiasm and joy, will naturally detach a soul person from those who cannot keep up, particularly agents of all types who would otherwise cling on like barnacles. Now, let's move on to dealing with close agents. Well, I'll really end this right now because I'm already like 2 hours deep. So I'll end this now and I'll come up with a part two. The part two will be the next installment. So once again, my name is Brother Prodigy, and today's date is August the 14th, I believe, 2014. And listen to this installment. If you have to listen to it multiple times, do so. But once again, my name is Brother Prodigy, and stay and guard yourself within this matrix because threats come from all angles, and have your armor on. So, peace and hotep.